And we kick off this evening with a look at the cinema.
I'm not a complicated man. I like cinema.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
Cinema history come to life.
I found my solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Space and Johnson
with a cinema review.
It is Monday, November 13th, 7 EST. Thank you all for the time switch, and thank you all for joining me for another episode of the Cinemasters Reviews. Been off for the past couple weeks. I came down with COVID. Thank you all for the well wishes. Saw a lot and particularly meant a lot, but I'm very excited to be back reviewing movies. 3 exciting reviews this week. We are reviewing Alexander Payne's The Holdovers, Nia DaCosta's The Marvels, and Justine Treat's Anatomy of a Fall. Normally, I would review the biggest movie of the weekend, which is technically The Marvels, but I'm not going to lie. It's my show, and I do what I want, and I want to talk about the movie I'm most excited about. And joining me today to talk about that movie is the one, the only, the lankiest man himself, the lankiest man you'll ever meet. Hey, look, the Lil Boatman. Boat, how are you doing tonight?
We're talking about the Mahdi. I'm great. Paulie G, the Mahdi, the man, the Mac Daddy. Marty Wolf himself, Paul Giamatti.
Marty Wolf, I do like that Big Fat Liar reference. I realize I did not say which movie I'm most excited to talk about tonight, but that movie is, as Boat alluded to, The Holdovers, directed by Alexander Payne. This is his first film in about 6 years since Downsizing and his first collaboration with Paul Giamatti since Sideways. This movie takes place in the 1970s, and it centers around a private academy called Barton Academy. Most kids during this holiday season tend to go home to their parents, but there are certain kids that don't really have a place to go. They are called the Holdovers, and usually every year, one teacher is supposed to be the one to stay behind. That is where Paul Hunnam comes in, played by Paul Giamatti. He is looking after a group of kids that eventually comes down to just one kid, Angus, played by Dominic Sessa. Him, one of the chefs, played by Divine Joy Randolph, sort of start off on like shaky waters, but as the movie starts to go on, they start to understand each other a little bit more. Boat, I want to ask you, what has been your opinion on Alexander Payne as a director thus far, and what were your feelings heading into this film?
Yeah, I've seen all of his work except for Citizen Ruth, and I'm a big Payne fan. Election is fantastic. About Schmidt's really good. The Descendants is very good. Nebraska is an all-timer, and Sideways is a top-tier movie for me. One of, like, goated, all-timer, love it. Downsizing, the most recent movie, I did not think was as bad as most people thought.
Fair.
I do definitely think it was his weakest I've seen. I've never seen Citizen Ruth. But I was very excited going into this because it seemed like he was coming back around like to his highest quality stuff. And he's working with Paul Giamatti again. And they made magic together once. So I was very excited.
Yeah, I have not seen as much Alexander Payne as you have, but for the most part, I am a very big fan. I love Election like you. I think In the Wrong Hands, that is one of the most uncomfortable movies ever made, and I think Alexander Payne handles that geniusly. Like you, I love Sideways. I think it's a modern-day masterpiece. I think the character of Miles, played by Paul Giamatti, is one of my favorite film characters of all time. And I think both from the performance and the writing, just a broken person that's just trying to find meaning again and just like what he likes. I think it's just genius. Unlike you, I am one of those people that didn't like Downsizing. I've seen some people come around to it, which makes me kind of want to go back and reappreciate it. It's funny. Paul Giamatti was supposed to play the Matt Damon role in that movie. And if I'm being honest, I think it would have been a better movie because I think Giamatti could have played that role a little better than Damon did. But yeah, for the most part, I am an Alexander Payne fan. And watching the trailers, it definitely felt like this was him kind of getting back to his roots. And I'm just going to say it. Alexander Payne is back because this movie is incredible. One of the first things I want to say is this movie is set in 1970, and it captures that feeling so well. From the opening studio logos alone being from, like, whenever a movie does that, I'm already in. And then just from, like, the music, from the clothing, from, like, just the small town nature of this movie, I just love the setting and I love the period. What was your feelings on, like, just the vibes and the feeling and, like, the setting of this movie, Mo?
Yeah, like you, when they go with the classic studio logos, or at least the classic look of the studio logos, I get so stoked. I get so happy. That is always so much fun. Yeah, unlike a lot of movies in the 70s, this one, it felt very 70s, but I don't think it, like, shoved it down your throat like some movies do. And don't get me wrong, I like a lot of the movies that do that, and I even like it when they do that. Sometimes, like The Nice Guys is a movie that very much shoves the 70s-ness down your throat, but, like, not in a bad way. This movie, it felt like it's set in the real 70s, not in the Hollywood 70s. You know, it's set more in just kind of the naturalistic version of the 70s. And I think Alexander Payne is a director who is very good at making his films have this very lived-in sense to them. And they just feel very grounded and really lived in. And I think his version of the 70s felt that. And I really liked how he portrayed the 70s and the setting and all of that. A lot of nice, like you said, nice small town vibes, really good winter vibes, which brings me to my only gripe, is that this movie was not released in December.
That was a weird choice, yeah.
I really wish, like, it's a Christmas movie. I really wish they would have released it around Christmas time, though I'm not upset that we got the movie early, because, like, I'm happy I got to see it now.
You tackled one of my other things I really love about this movie, and that is just how quaint and how real this movie feels, and how just it just completely is able to tackle and, like, wind in all these different tones to the way where it all just feels so natural and just so lived in. Like, none of these characters in these movies feel like characters in a way. You feel like you're watching real people, and I think that has to do with the script and the writing from Payne. And I just think he's just so genius with how he just goes from scenes that are very, like, quiet and very, like, you're just watching these characters, like, walk around town, to scenes that are, like, incredibly funny, where you have Angus, like, messing with Paul in a way. And then when you have scenes, like, towards the end, which are incredibly sad and incredibly emotional, like, this is the only movie this year that genuinely brought me to tears at a point. And when it gets to that point, I was a mess. And I think it is because of how much Payne makes you care about these people and care about these worlds. But what do you think about just how real this film felt?
Yeah, as I said, the film feels very real and very lived in. Like, very similar to Sideways in that way, that there are big moments that happen, but all of the big moments that happen don't feel sensationalized. And I think that's partially because of the filmmaking that Payne's a very, like, realistic filmmaker. I don't think he's a very flashy filmmaker. He makes some flashy-ish choices here and there, but for the most part, I think he's a pretty grounded filmmaker, and I think that really helps, because all of the moments that I feel like a lesser director would really try to, like, overplay and, like, really, like, make you try to feel the emotion of it, whether they be the funny moments, the sad moments, what have you. Payne just kind of lets those moments exist and just kind of doesn't tell you how you should feel, just let the moment tell you how you should feel. And I think that's very smart, and it's the same thing he did with Sideways, and he does it here, and it's great.
There is one moment in this movie where you just have one character just watching another character ice skate, and I'm just like, I could watch this forever. Like, you're just watching one person just enjoy themselves and getting enjoyment from watching that. I love scenes where you get that, where like no words are said, you're just watching the characters act, and I love that so much. Yes, this definitely feels quiet, and yes, while Alexander Payne is never like the loudest filmmaker in the world, this is definitely even quieter than I think the movies I've seen. Like, although Sideways is a very real film, there are moments that like Sideways has like a phenomenal score. Like, people don't remember like how good the score of Sideways is. This movie has like very minimal score. It oftentimes you're just hearing like just doors closing or like chalk writing, and it just makes you feel like you're at the school. Downsizing, it's a movie that like ends with all these characters like just walking down a hallway like to go like up the stairs, and I'm like I think Downsizing weirdly, like, I think where it fails is when it tries to have those bigger moments, and I think this movie's saying like, okay, we're gonna try to get away from that and just focus on the characters is what makes this movie so effective. One of the other things that I think you gotta say when talking about this movie as to why it's so effective, the performances from everyone is incredible. Paul Giamatti is one of the best actors working today, and we've talked about him. He was born to play this character. When the character of Paul Hunnam is first introduced, he's so curmudgeon, he's so grumpy. He has like this like sort of like arrogant nature to him, where like he definitely has like this sense of intelligence, but he wishes that he was doing something else. And as the movie continues to go on, he really starts to like he hates the fact that he has to do this, but he slowly begins to find more enjoyment and find more sympathy for the character of Angus. And I think Dominic Sessa is also incredible, who is someone who we learn early on the reason why he has to stay home for the holiday is really kind of tragic in a way, and you really get sympathy for him early. And the movie does a great job by like you're introduced to Angus in a group of other like kind of slightly more unlikable characters, so you're kind of on his side like a little bit more, and you get like the sympathy for him. But yeah, I think Sessa and Giamatti were excellent. What did you think about those two lead performances?
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about Sessa first. Sessa's very good. I think Sessa has a very hard job. I can't quite remember who said it, but there was kind of an established actor who was talking about the movie Rain Man. And he was saying that he felt that Tom Cruise actually had the harder job in Rain Man than Dustin Hoffman did. Because it's very difficult when you've got to be next to a very bombastic performance and to be kind of the window performance and be kind of that, and to be effective but without usurping control of the movie. And I think that's kind of what Sessa does here. I think he's able to kind of be he's not necessarily an observer character, but he's definitely more of like more of like our central grounded character next to Giamatti's performance as Paul. So I think that's he has a really tough job, and I think he does it well in those moments where he does just kind of get to shine on his own. He kills. He's great. Mad respect to him. Man, Paul Giamatti is he is so good. Like, this genuinely like rivals his performance as Miles in Sideways for me. Like, it is that good. And if you know me, you know how much I love his performance as Miles. Because like, this feels like a compilation of every performance that Giamatti has given. Like, everything that he's good at. He's great at being, kind of, intellectual and insecure. He's great at being very, like, forceful and, angry and grumpy. He's great at being, funny and sarcastic and having a lot of wit. He's great at being very down to earth and very human. And he's great at being friendly. He is I don't think we give Paul Giamatti enough credit for his absolute range. No, and I think he delivers everything I just said into this one performance. It is so phenomenal how much he puts into this character, and it's so great. But at the same time, you get shades I feel like you have never seen with Giamatti before in this movie. Like, it just feels like there are a few moments, like, specifically, like the ice skating scene, and different moments like that, where you just get to see just him just completely like joyful, which you rarely get with Giamatti, I feel like, and just kind of completely bare with his soul, and I just think that is so good. Giamatti just, I don't know that he'll win an Oscar. Right now he's my pick, and I don't see anybody else coming around. Like, he is, I think, easily the best lead performance of the year.
It's neck and neck for me between Murphy and Giamatti right now. But I think, yeah, like you said, I think Giamatti just takes you on such a journey with this character, and just the relationship between Paul and Angus, I think, is just so much fun. With like, I think, like, if you've seen the trailer, one of the first like major conflicts is when Angus decides to make like a flip in the gym, and like what that comes from, and like how that's sort of like the thing that like spurs like the friendly side of their relationship, I think is just so interesting and just so captivating. But there's one other person I think you need to talk about when you are talking about this movie, and that is Divine Joy Randolph as Mary Lamb, who is the other major staff member at the school who is staying by. She's the chef at the school, and we learn early on that her son is someone who died in, I believe they say he died in Vietnam, and she's not grieving as much as you would like she's not like openly grieving as much as you would think, but you can still tell from the way how Divine Joy Randolph plays the character that this has definitely taken a toll on her, and she does not feel the same way. And I just think she is, in a way, kind of like the heart of the movie, and like kind of like the brains of the movie, as to when the character of Paul is a little bit like a little bit like cold to Angus and like very like grumpy, she is always the one to like bring him down. Like, do you realize what he's going through? Do you understand? And he wants to be a better person because he sees the situation she is going through, and she is so concerned with Angus. And I think Divine Joy Randolph plays this character so well. She kind of has like a romance with another guy in the movie, and I think that's honestly very sweet. What did you think about Divine Joy Randolph in this movie?
Oh, phenomenal. She is so good. I really like her performance. She gets a lot of like great little funny quips in there too, which I love. But yeah, the heart of her performance is her grief, and the way her character, you can tell for the most part, is holding that grief just beyond the surface. And you rarely get to actually see it, but you can tell it is there. And there's a moment where she does not have full control of herself, and the grief spills through, and it is haunting. It is an incredible moment of a performance. And yeah, I think her role in this movie is so important. And I think it could have just been a very throwaway character. But like that's the thing. This character is written in such a human way that it is just so, all of these characters are just so human, and this world just feels so lived in, and I love it so much.
No, Randolph's performance it's a performance I don't think I would have appreciated as much if I had seen this movie like 5 years ago. Like, if I had seen this like when I was younger, I'd be like, okay, why are we putting this much praise on this performance? Because it's not the loudest performance in the world. Like, she doesn't have like a ton of moments. Like, I love this performance, but this is not like Viola Davis in Fences, where like you see why people like love that performance. Like, it's just raw power. Like, a lot of what Randolph is doing is very much.
She has one Oscar bait scene, or Oscar clip scene, I should say. She has one like big Oscar clip scene, but yeah.
She definitely has one moment, but for the most part, I just think she just feels so real in this movie, and that is why I really appreciated her performance. One of the other things I want to say as to why I love this movie, this is not like the shortest movie in the world. This movie's about 2 hours and 15 minutes, but I think it uses its runtime perfectly. Like, I think with how it paced itself, as we start out on winter break, we sort of see how Paul is not like the most liked teacher. Then a lot of the students go home, and then a few stay, and then everyone else goes except for Angus. And then it's a little trepidatious, and then Paul and Angus start to get more friendly. they start celebrating Christmas. They go on a little trip, and then other things start happening. I think it uses its runtime perfectly, and it puts a lot of like stuff in there. And it's not like we never have like this huge like climax per se. Like there's definitely like a reveal that is like very emotional, but there's never like this huge climax. Like something like Sideways has like that big like set piece at the end where Miles sneaks into the house. Like there's nothing quite like that. But I just think I still think it's incredibly well paced, and the ending of the movie just feels like a lot of the movie just feels very quiet and just feels very lived in. What did you think about the pacing of this movie in general?
Yeah, most great writers will tell you like, don't think of where your story is going to go. Just kind of let the story naturally go where it's naturally going to go, and this movie feels so true to that. Every moment that happens in this movie feels just very natural and very much like, yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. Like it's well paced, but not in like the very traditional like 3-act structure well pacing. Like it's well paced in a very like naturalistic way. There's not a wasted note in this movie. Every scene that we get feels essential and is there for a reason. And again, I think in the same way that Sideways is, but unlike Sideways, like you said, there's not this very like 3-act structure to it. Like, I mean, every movie has a 3-act structure, but not in this way where it feels so like we're hitting this beat, we're hitting this beat, we're hitting this beat. It just feels so naturalistic.
No, 100%. I don't want to go into like super heavy details because I think this would be kind of verging on spoiler territory. The third act of this movie it gets so heavy, but it completely earns it in the most perfect way, and it doesn't feel manipulative in any way. Like it doesn't feel like, oh man, now we're gonna get the audience. It's just a reveal is made about the Angus character that we didn't quite know, and just all the context that this kind of puts in. And there's a scene where Dominic Sessa is just explaining everything that has happened in his life up to this point to Giamatti, and I really hope Sessa does not go undervalued during this Oscar season, because in my opinion, that moment is where he earns his, like, if he were to get a nomination, that is why he gets the nomination. What do you think about the third act in general, Bo?
Yeah, again, kind of hard to talk about without getting into certain territory. But third act's great. Again, it doesn't quite feel like a third act though. It just feels like very naturalistic in how it's brought up. And yeah, Sessa really gets to shine in the one scene that you're talking about, and it's great. I also just love I won't say exactly what movie it is, but there's a scene in which Giamatti and Sessa go to the movies, and I was just like, there we go. And I was like the DiCaprio Once Upon a Time in Hollywood meme. It was very fun.
Very interesting movie choice. Like it makes sense for the time period, but I was like, okay, like this. Before we head into final ratings, is there anything else you want to talk about with the Holdovers?
I don't think I have anything else really to say other than like Giamatti is just so good in this movie. Like everything is great. I love this movie so much, but Giamatti is just incredible.
I think Paul Giamatti is an actor that everyone will always admit, like, oh yeah, we love that guy. He has a ton of talent. But I think always people like, you don't always remember how talented the guy really is and how much range. And not only that, how great of a leading man he actually is. Like, I think everyone is like, oh, he's an incredible supporting player. But just like someone like Philip Seymour Hoffman, who was also an incredible supporting actor, when they let him lead a movie, he was also so good in those. And yeah, in the few times when Giamatti gets those opportunities, I do think he is very, very good. But yeah, I say we head right into final ratings if you're down with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we rate movies on a scale here of 0 to 10 videotapes. 0 is absolutely abysmal. 10 is a near masterpiece of a film. Bo, if you were to rate the Holdovers on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, what would you give it?
10.
Fair.
10. Like this one's gonna be an instant classic for me. Like, I'm going to come back to this probably every Christmas, to be honest. Like, I know this is one that's going to stick with me. I have still been thinking about that. I saw this movie Friday night, and it's still stuck with me, and I know it's going to stick with me for a while. I can't tell if I'm cutting out or if Payson is. Okay, it was Payson. Hello, everyone. So, other great Paul Giamatti performances. American Splendor, he's really good in that. Cinderella Man, he's so good in that. Big Fat Liar, he plays Marty Wolf. Look, that performance gets given in like an adaptation style movie or like another like Hollywood, like The Players type movie. He gets an Oscar nomination. He's actually freaking great in that movie. He was really good in Private Life. Giamatti's great in Private Life. What else is Paul Giamatti really good in? Oh, Payson's power went out. Oof. I don't know what to do here. I'm really not sure what I should say or do. I don't. I'm gonna ask him what I should do. Okay, so Paul Giamatti, he's great. He's really good in things. I have no idea what the heck I should do. But Paul Giamatti's great. I don't want to just make this be dead air. Okay, so in the 1920s, Charlie Chaplin is nominated at the first ever Oscars in the category of Best Director, Best Actor, and Best Story. And basically, if you don't know how the original Oscars worked, it was Louis B. Mayer, Douglas Fairbanks, and Kay Pickford all in a room, basically just being like, these people should have nominations. And they kind of realized, like, there's like a good chance we're just going to give Chaplin actor, director, writer. That feels unfair. So they stripped him of his nominations and just gave him one Oscar to represent those three. So then talkies happen. Chaplin's movies aren't really like, his silent stuff isn't really doing well anymore. So again, like, so he doesn't get nominated anymore. Okay. Payson's telling me to leave. I don't know what the heck to do. I should probably just leave then. Well, he said if I want to leave, I'd say just leave. I don't know. I guess I'm gonna go. I'll finish my Charlie Chaplin story. So anyway, Charlie Chaplin doesn't get nominated until like 1940, and he loses to Jimmy Stewart. And he loses riding depression surges. So anyway, doesn't get nominated. Then he gets accused of being a communist. He goes to Europe, yada, yada, yada. His movies don't really get released in the US. But then 70s, nobody cares about communism anymore. And due to a weird loophole, the movie Limelight, which he released in 1952, didn't come to the US. He released it in the US in 1972. And he did the music for that movie. So he gets nominated for Best Original Score, but it doesn't really matter because guess what? The Godfather is about to be nominated, is nominated for Original Score, and Nino Rota is definitely going to win. But it's found out that Nino Rota was nominated or that Nino Rota stole his score from a different movie that he composed. So he did not make it for The Godfather. So his nomination was revoked, and now Chaplin's the major player there, and he wins his Oscar in the category of Best Music. It's weird. Okay, well, stay for breezy, folks. Payson told me I could go, so I'm gonna go. This is awkward. I don't know what to do. Bye.